What up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I don't think I've ever used this.
We used it in November once.
Did we? All right.
So it looks a little different though, so we'll see if we still got it.
I just had to set up my privileges, like permissions, whatever.
Seems like we already got a few people joining.
Yeah.
Super
awesome.
Is the chat enabled? Can people drop messages in chat? Oh, there you go. Cool.
Looks like it. GM.
GM. Just give it a few minutes before we officially kick this off.
Yep.
But nice to see everyone here. All the familiar names and faces. Are you using your iPhone camera or did you get a...
No, I use my iPhone.
Okay.
So I can like pick it up.
Move it around.
Yep, it's in the bedroom. Some T Swift signed album for my wife.
Where the Swifties at? No collab this time. There will be no collab after this, at the end of this. Maybe next time. It's a good idea.
Everybody's going to leave. Yeah, we can, 3 minutes? And then we'll get started?
Yeah, probably good.
11:03, 11:04. Let people roll in. Yeah.
I can't see the webinar though.
You're good. Okay. Oh, maybe you're not good. Do you have a dual monitor or you just use one screen?
I'll just use my one screen. I'll have to toggle back and forth, I guess. Like I can put it on a slide and then come back to like answer questions in chat and stuff. So it'll be fine.
Okay.
Hello. Loving everyone here.
Hope everyone's Wednesday's going good. Everyone claim their blast tokens. Just kidding. What else happened today? Yeah, pretty much that. Bitcoin's rebounding, so space feels a little bit more lively.
Yeah.
Polyfi season.
It's DeFi summer, as always.
The debates are tomorrow.
Oh.
Well,
should we maybe just kick it off with some like introductions or?
Yeah, let's get started because it should take a little bit. And anyone feel free to ask questions. Daniel and I are very like open forum with our stuff.
Yep.
It's not meant to be like a college lecture where everyone sits quietly for the entire time.
It's hard to learn that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can just start with about us in case you're not familiar. I think most of the names that I saw in the chat, I'm very familiar with, but essentially Transient Labs is a platform and company that focuses on, how would you say this? I want to say propping up artists, but helping artists cultivate their ideas and bring their artworks on chain. Is that a good way of summarizing this, Ben?
Yeah, I would just say we live upstream from typical minting platforms. So if you think of Manifold, Zora, Foundation, we provide all those tools and more in some cases, but we like to live upstream in the creation process. So we encourage creators to come to us, before they're done creating, because a lot can be done using the blockchain as a creative tool, not just like a sales mechanism.
Right. And I think that's mainly how like 2021 went down, was the blockchain was just a way to sell. And as the years have gone by, it's become more of a collaborative tool with the artists where you can work in tandem with the blockchain. But yeah, so our team, Ben Strauss here is actually a co-founder of Transient Labs. I my name's Daniel. I run the marketing, artist relations, and I'm usually the one who's answering any support questions. So yeah, it's a quick intro here, but I don't know, Ben, if you maybe want to talk about your background and Marco's background, and what got you guys into the space.
Yeah, I was just answering PB, Paper Buddha. The video limitation, we'll get into this, but Markdown does not render videos. But even images and videos, both they live in their own. It's up to the creator, and eventually we're going to provide these tools. But I like to store them on decentralized clouds like Arweave, so there really is no limit. And then you can just link to the video that gets stored in the inscription, just like a piece of metadata when you mint a typical token. Let's see here, getting ahead of ourselves. So yeah, Marco and I, best friends since college. Classic story. We went to engineering school together. He went to Honda as an R&D engineer, testing vehicles in high altitudes in the Rocky Mountains. And then I stayed for a master's degree and studied hydrophobic coatings for solar panels, actually. So material science degree in so yeah, that was a master's. And then after that, I ended up at Honeybee Robotics. It's a engineering company for aerospace. So basically aerospace engineering. We built satellites, robotics, shot things into space, worked with SpaceX, Blue Origin, JPL, NASA, like all of them. So led teams doing that, designing complex robotic systems for spacecraft. I tried to sneak some NFTs into space while I was there, but didn't succeed. It's a a lot of red tape. And so while we were there, because Marco joined me, actually, I summoned him from Honda, joined me at Honeybee Robotics. And so we were co-engineers together. While we were there, because I got started in NFTs in late 2020 with my photography. While we were there, I started showing him smart contracts because he's like more of a coding wizard. So I do a lot of coding, but he does like protocol level coding. It makes me look like a 3-year-old playing with Mega Blocks. So he's like heavy into programming, showed him smart contracts, and then we realized all the potential for using smart contracts in ways that no one was really doing at the time. Because it was fairly new to everybody. People were just using them as vehicles to get NFTs onto the blockchain. Or sorry, like digital assets onto the blockchain as NFTs. But then what we realized is that smart contracts they're an empty container, but they're also programmable. And you can do all kinds of crazy dynamic art stuff and dynamic contracts. And so we started messing around with those with early photography pieces, and people started reaching out, wondering what wizardry we were up to. And so we started working with Time Magazine, Neil Strauss, other large brands early on, big creators early on, and started doing a lot of custom projects. And that's kind of how Transient Labs formed. And then we incorporated and really started growing. And Daniel was our first intern and has obviously first and only intern that has graduated that position a long time ago because he's crushing it here. And now there's like 12 or 13 of us. And so lean and mean.
Yeah. And so we went from, being a services company where we would work one-on-one, very like hands-on and white glove with creators and companies in the space, designing mint pages, creating dynamic NFTs, to building the lab, which is essentially a product version of all the cool things that we've been building over the last 3 years. And today we're going to talk about a few of these features, but some of the features of the lab include mint pages, which we call stacks, artist sovereign contracts. We have one-of-one contracts, edition contracts, something we call like multi-metadata, or the 7160 smart contract, story inscriptions, which are actually basically on-chain text that you can attach to any token. And we're going to spend a good amount of time talking about that today, but this is actually a feature across all the contracts at Transient Labs. And then we also have Trace, which is our first innovation regarding physical artworks. And essentially it provides a digital certificate of authenticity for the physical. we can now have records, have provenance, add records such as like sales, exhibitions, transfers, behind the scenes content, like you working on the painting prior to being finished, and all sorts of provenance like that. Then am I missing anything from the lab or features that are included?
No, it's leaving a message.
Cool. So we're going to just dive right into story inscriptions. So the first things first is like, why? What's the reason we even created story inscriptions? And I think, Ben, maybe you're better to talk about this part here.
Yeah. So provenance before stories inscriptions, or I keep referring to them more and more frequently as token inscriptions. It's just, we might change the branding on it. Who knows? But these token or story inscriptions, they unlock a new layer of provenance that never existed before. So prior to story inscriptions, blockchain provenance was mainly sales and ownership related. You could see transactions, you could see sales, you can see ownership provenance. And by provenance, I just mean like historical events, that took place in like an immutable fashion up to the present time. So what's missing from this, and something we constantly would notice when you like grab an object around your house that means something, a thing has like history to it, like especially a piece of art. It's been through more than just like trading of hands, but it's evoked feelings and emotions. It's probably been exhibited places. It's probably experienced damage and repair and all kinds of stuff. So there's a history to artwork, and this applies to digital assets, aka NFTs, that don't get captured traditionally by the blockchain provenance. And so we wanted to unlock that, and that was done via these token inscriptions. And so that allows, on every Transient Labs creator contract, whether it's 1155, 721, multi-creations like 7160, any future contracts like Doppelganger and all that, it allows any creator and collector to inscribe these text-based data or stories to the token on-chain, like actually on-chain. It's not on Arrowweave or IPFS. On-chain, immutably, forever, tied to that specific token ID. So now these NFTs can pick up history, and they have more than just what's in the metadata. They have this entire historical journal, we'll call it, of inscriptions that can exist if the creator and the collectors decide to add them. And that just unlocks an insane amount of use cases that go far beyond just provenance too. Like I was talking with Dave Krugman about this concept of minting a cover art for a book and then actually writing the chapters completely on chain via the story inscriptions. So like there's all kinds of crazy stuff you can do with this. But that's essentially what it is a brand new layer of provenance.
I think I was a little late to getting to this slide, but that summarizes what story inscriptions are.
I'm improving. It's my jazz.
I guess since you're talking about it being an on-chain element, there is obviously a gas cost associated with adding story inscriptions.
Yeah, they're ridiculously cheap though, which you kind of cover here. Yeah, so I think this is mainnet that you put here, right?
This is mainnet, and this is at 100 GUI, which, gas right now is significantly cheaper.
Yeah, and that's a 5,000 word story. Someone did like a 50,000 word story on I think it was Proof.
Yeah, it was Proof.
Eli recorded like a 50,000 character story that cost like hardly registered. It's like less than the gas you'd pay to just mint an NFT. So it's, especially if you do this on layer twos like Base and Arbitrum and any other future layer twos that will integrate, it's going to be negligible. Most of the time, it doesn't even show up on like the ETH estimator. It just says 0 because it's so many decimal places. So,
and then, I know you mentioned this, but to be clear, like story inscriptions, when they're enabled, it's at a contract level. So as a creator, you can enable and disable story inscriptions as a feature. And
yep.
So but when they're enabled, when they're enabled, collectors can also inscribe stories, right? Like there's no review system. It's like if they own the token, they can add their own inscriptions and it's forever on chain and linked to that token.
Yeah, it shows up different. Like it has a different icon, right? It's not colored in from like a front end perspective, but yeah, it does show up. I think we're on the new contracts, like the I don't even remember what we're on now, V3 or 4 of all creator contracts. We're gonna allow creators to toggle on collector stories. So like creators can add stories, but maybe they don't want their collectors to. Just like future optionality, but pretty much the same concept.
Yeah. So, we have a few examples here lined up today to just go through and talk about. Maybe Ben. So Michelle is actually, I think this was a little bit before my time actually, Ben at Transient Labs, but this is where the Story Inscriptions idea originated, right? It was with Michelle's project.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, she wanted collectors to be able to add thought-provoking feelings that were generated from or like created or bestowed upon from her artwork to the collectors, and wanted this creator collector communication layer to exist. And that's kind of where we worked with her to create the concept of Story Inscriptions. And then we obviously did a ton of research and auditing to figure out the best way to do this technically. But yeah, that's kind of where it was born. And since then, it just made sense to put into every single creator contract.
So like, originally, it started as like its own contract with this feature, and then as time went on, we realized like the potential for it and how it can be used, and it's now just a feature of every Transient Labs contract instead of being a separate contract.
Exactly.
So, just this is another example, and you can see there's a few inscriptions on the right side. There's 21 more. So this is actually, I think, this is an 1155 edition, and I'll actually go to the page in a minute to show you how these are displayed in the interface for them. But essentially, Bastien is a 3D artist of sorts, an animator, and he released a piece of an arcade. There's like a video of an arcade, kind of old school, with the different arcade games and the leaderboard. And he really wanted to create a project where he interacted and engaged with collectors. And so the way he did this was he actually essentially asked collectors to inscribe a memory they have, a nostalgic memory, from the arcade. His theme is very nostalgic, like that's just the way and the style he works in. And so he wanted to hear about collectors' memories in this arcade. And since this is an 1155 edition, all these inscriptions by different collectors are shared on this one token forever. So even if a collector sells it, they still have their inscription that has been added. So, none of these are .eth, but like if I was this collector and I sold this token, the inscription will forever stay there, and you'll see that I owned it at some point and I had a memory that the piece reminded me of. Something to note, though, that was really interesting is Bastien actually incentivized his collectors to do this with two things. The first thing is, if you left an inscription, he would actually go and incorporate something from your story into the final piece. So he was actually going to change the piece and do a metadata update to incorporate all the different collectors and their stories into the piece as best as possible. And so I think the way he did this was actually through like a leaderboard, and he added the names of the collectors, or whatever the preferred name was. The second incentive to do this as a collector, it takes a couple minutes of your time, but that's still a couple minutes you're asking from your collectors. So he actually offered a 1-of-1 raffle to any collector who inscribed a story within that month. So if you inscribed a story on this edition, you had a chance to win a 1-of-1 from him, which go from 1 to 3 ETH, and you're actually also incorporated into the final piece. So I mentioned here this edition right now, I believe it holds the record for the highest number of unique story inscriptions on one piece, with 25 individual inscriptions. So I may have to go back here to share my screen. Let me see. Just gotta do my window. So here's the piece. Let's see if it'll. load.
Probably take a while since you're screen sharing and live streaming and recording all at the same time.
Yeah, maybe it's my computer here, but essentially see how the Bastian added a story about the piece, the context, why he's engaging with collectors. And his story has this little purple icon. That's to identify it as a creator story. While collectors have an icon that's grayed out like this. So you know it's from a collector, not a creator. And so you can see there's actually over 20 something inscriptions on this token, full of different actual stories from collectors of their experiences with the arcade, or a specific memory associated with the arcade. So it's just a really special piece. And the collector's feedback was super promising in the sense that they really enjoyed connecting with the artwork and the artist on a deeper level through Story Inscriptions. That was just a medium to do that with. So let's see. And maybe I'll pause there if anyone has any questions or any ideas they want to share. But if not, I'll just continue to the next example that we have.
Yeah, I don't know. We can definitely invite. I think we can invite people up later, right? Maybe we just get through stuff first, and then
Let's do that.
we can. I'll continue answering questions that happen in the.
Cool. So this is another example called Moonbeams. And this is with Cardboard and Shlomes, if anyone's familiar with those two. But they had an interesting use case for Story Inscriptions. It's a new one for us. And so if you're not familiar with the project, it was essentially, they recorded the solar eclipse that happened a couple months ago in its totality. And they chopped it up into frames. So like 720 frames. And each frame was mintable for a minute. So it was a 720-minute long mint, but every minute was correlated to a different artwork of the eclipse. So the way they use Story Inscriptions is they created what they call commands, which would be like here, the call moon GIF, which is the simplest command to call. And it would assemble all the Moonbeam tokens in your wallet and then animate it. So it's like a time lapse basically of all the frames you collected, but in an animated version. So it created an additional layer of engagement with your collectors. And there were different commands. There were, like you can call a black and white frame. So you can get these different versions of your artworks by using Story Inscriptions to have the collectors submit their requests or commands, so to speak, on chain. And so this actually resulted in over 230 unique inscriptions on 230 unique tokens. And there were, about 38,000 tokens. But this was essentially free since it was on Base and it's a 6-letter story inscription. But it was just really fascinating to see the use of commands to basically continue the evolution of an artwork and project. I don't know if I missed anything here, Ben.
Other than it was on a multi-creation contract, 7160. So the creators or the collectors got to throw in their commands and inscribe them on their token. And then we queried all those, gave them to Carborn. He created all the custom artwork based on the commands that were inscribed, and then added those new artworks to their tokens, since it was a multi-creation or a multi-metadata token. So that was the whole point of it, is like engaging creator or collectors to essentially inform new versions of their artwork that were going to get added to their tokens.
Yeah, it facilitated the evolution of the project, and you as a collector got to receive new versions of your artwork, whether that's an animated GIF version or GIF or a black and white version of the same artwork that you've had. So that was just a really cool example with the commands and utilization of 7160. We actually published a thread earlier this week, diving a little deeper into how both 7160 and Story Inscriptions kind of work together to bring this to life. So this is a really simple use case of Story Inscriptions that we really love. And it's essentially using Story Inscriptions to document proof of exhibition. And so here's a screenshot of an example that OXDGB did with the Alley. So these were exhibited at Ninfa in Milan last year. And, with Story Inscriptions and Markdown, maybe Ben, you can speak to this a little, but you can actually incorporate images that render in your story inscriptions. So you can actually have a picture of your showcase or exhibition. You can provide the location, the dates, and now it's forever linked to this digital NFT version.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk a little bit about the Markdown?
Yeah, we'll get into that with like some examples.
Okay, we'll do a live demo for that.
Live demo. But yeah, you can add images. The hosting of the file has to be done in traditional manners like IPFS or Arweave. And currently we rely on creators to host their own images, which is free, by the way. We have like support articles on how to do that through IPFS free public gateway. But eventually we're going to support that so that when you're writing a story, you can just upload an image and we'll host it for you just like we do any NFTs on the decentralized storage. Yeah, so you can add images into stories like this and they'll render. And so you can use, that just opens up a whole new world of like, oh, I want to show where it's been exhibited. Take a photo of it on the wall, like IRL, proof that it was there, and then inscribe that with the details into the story. So this is stuff that you could never pick up before, being able to inscribe stuff like this to tokens.
It really,
behind the scenes, you can upload GIFs too. You can show like work in progresses. You can store those in inscriptions. There's all kinds of things you can do with images like that.
yeah. And I think ultimately, like something like this, like proof of exhibition, or even whips that you include as story inscriptions, maybe not monetarily, but it boosts the value of the artwork to the collector, in my opinion, right? Like it's a value add to the piece that the collector already has.
Yeah.
So this is another very different example than what we've talked about. But TJO, for his piece Rouge, he actually added his full, CC plus, CC0 license to this artwork directly on chain. So he actually worked with a lawyer to develop this license, all the legal talk, and add it on chain as a legal license for this piece. So it cannot be disputed, essentially. So this is just a really interesting use case of adding licenses or legal documentation to a piece directly onto the blockchain for the piece or for the token. So maybe Ben, I'll stop sharing here and you can do some live demos of how that actually looks and what the interface is for both creators and collectors to add story inscriptions.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Let me see if I can share this guy. Make sure I pick the right screen. I think it's this one. Are we good? Can you see it? The Rouge?
It's loading still. Okay, there it goes. Yep.
Yeah, so this is actually on the Launchpad. Launchpad is, well, we've migrated. Everything is now into transient.xyz. So this is just like think about it like the marketplace or like the engagement layer of Transient Labs. So you can look at tokens, you can shop stacks, drops that are live get featured up here in a carousel. And we'll talk about that with stacks. And then you can see all the live. This is like constantly live rotating most recent 721s, 1155s, 7160s, trace deployments, stories added, and stacks deployed. So this is like our infant marketplace. It's going to continue maturing into something, full blown. So if I'm just going to go to a token that I made. It's kind of like a super token that uses a little bit of everything that we're building. I just called it Bloomscape. Created an AI artwork. It's also dynamic, so I can interact with it and actually color on it like this with the fluid dynamic stuff. That is a template we're going to be building for creators to use without any code. So that's coming down the line with something called the Dynamic Art Engine. So yeah, here's story inscriptions that I added to it. Just some examples, some instructions on how to interact with the dynamic piece, kind of how it was built. The original AI prompt I used to generate this piece. These are just some example use cases that I was thinking of. So I inscribed the actual prompt. I know a lot of AI artists don't like to reveal their prompts, but I'm just was doing an example here. I posted, inscribed the entire code block here because it supports Markdown of the dynamic art. So this is the entire script that I wrote to create this dynamic art piece. And so you can see it's quite long, and I think it was ridiculously cheap. So I inscribed all the coding used in this piece as a story inscription. And then finally, here is a proof of exhibition at a made-up gallery, just because this is like a demo token. But I put an image in here, and I showed the date of exhibition, the name of the screen, a Pixel Glow Touch, completely made up, and then the location, Luminary Visions in San Francisco, and then a photo of someone interacting with the piece, hanging on the wall. So that was like a proof of exhibition. And if I connect the appropriate wallet, let's see here, is it gonna be TL? So once you connect the right wallet, which is just done up here, this button all of a sudden enables. As a creator or a collector, the UI is the exact same. So if I wanted to add a story, which I was not prepared to add a story to this, but we'll just do one anyways. I click this button, inscribe. It opens up a module here, and you can literally start typing anything you want. We're going to be adding like rich text editors. So we'll have like a toolbar up here. So you can like bolds, italics, change font sizes, header types, underline, all that stuff that you usually would see in like a Microsoft Word document. But for now, it just supports raw Markdown. And there's really good like online converters that will just let you write in a text editor and it spits out raw Markdown you can paste in here. But let's just see here. Should we add an image, Daniel? I'm not sure if I have an image ready. Yeah. But so yeah, you just type it up here like I'm adding a story for the Story Inscription webinar on June. What is today? The 26th.
And so this is the same interface that your collectors would use when they inscribe a story as well. So they just connect the wallet, click inscribe, and then they can add whatever text they'd like to the piece.
And then to add images, we do have support articles that show exactly how to do that. And like I said, eventually we'll have like an upload image button here. But for now, you just have to use raw Markdown. And that looks like this. Oops. Where I'd have exclamation mark, square brackets, alt text. Don't memorize all this. We literally have a support article that'll show all this. And then the URL for the image. So this might be like arweave.image.jpg or whatever. And then when you put that in here and you hit preview, it's going to show you the text here. And obviously that's not a real URL, but that's where the image would show up. This is how you review to make sure that your story looks the way you want it to look. And then you'd hit inscribe. And you would send transaction, sign the transaction in your wallet. I'm not going to do a fake image here. And then seconds later, once the transaction goes through, that story gets added on chain to this token forever. So it's a really simple interface. And like I said, we're always working to expand upon it and make it more user-friendly and less raw Markdown type approach.
And
but, yeah,
I was going to say, I think a common question that comes up, Ben, is, are these story inscriptions only viewable on Launchpad, or where else are they viewable? Like, can I see it on OpenSea, or?
They're on Etherscan. They're in the contract. So because OpenSea and SuperRare and Foundation don't have a front end looking for this slot in the contract, this data slot, they're not going to show on OpenSea or SuperRare or Foundation. Now, obviously, the idea is that's why we're building our own marketplace here. But obviously, the idea eventually is that we're working with these platforms, and as stories become more, prevalent and more creators are using them, we're going to give them like off-the-shelf solutions to easily add these story UIs to their platforms. So you can see this exact same thing. If I loaded this token on OpenSea or Foundation, the stories would show up just as they do here, since it's all on-chain data. So yeah, It's currently we're the only ones that render it.
But it's entirely possible that like in the future, other
Oh yeah,
platforms could
it's
render
all
them
there.
if
And other
paid.
things we've thought about doing is creating our own browser extension so that you could go to OpenSea and we'll detect a transient token, like a transient contract, and manipulate OpenSea's UI to actually add a story section. So you can actually view all of this stuff, this rich data on any marketplace. So the important part though is since we're always early, that's what Transient Labs does is we push the boundaries and kind of build before, we're always on the bleeding edge of stuff. The important part is that this stuff is on chain and it's in the contract. You can see this on Etherscan. You can see all these inscriptions being logged. So it's permanent and it's always there for anyone to render. Another thing about this one is this is a 7160 token as well. So I can actually click this C token creations and load in. My internet's pretty slow too when I'm sharing. I can actually load in all the different versions. There's 5 versions in this one token. There's the one that starts color and goes black and white. There's the starts black and white and goes color. This one I think is a square aspect ratio that I added. So if someone's frame is square and they prefer square, they can point to this token or this creation in the token. And then we have some static versions too in case their screen doesn't support dynamic art, which a lot of screens don't yet. So yeah, there's 5 creations in here, and you can see I can cycle through them. And if I own this token, right now it's pinned on number 1, but if I own this token, I can pin the creation on any of these others, and the token will actually change to that. I know that's not part of today's
It's going to be next month's
webinar, but
next month's webinar is going to be a deep dive into 7160 and all the use cases there.
yeah, it opens up a lot of doors. All right, let's keep going. Oh yeah, I noticed Corey Van Loo's been he's been busy adding story inscriptions to this recent piece that he released. He even had it a legal disclaimer about the winning bid and if it reaches 3 ETH or higher, like basically an on-chain promise. What will happen to the piece? So that was really cool to see. And then he added a bunch of extra details and just like some behind-the-scenes narrative. So,
awesome.
How the heck do I stop screen sharing without going back in infinite screening? Infinity mirror.
Just click the
disable screen sharing.
Yep.
Okay.
We have a few questions here, Ben, to take a look
Okay.
at as well. I'm trying to answer them. But I know, just also to answer your question, creator analytics and like data points, I think are definitely something we've been thinking about and talking through. It's not coming entirely soon, but it's definitely, I think, on the roadmap for the future. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but we definitely want to provide more tools and data for creators to leverage when releasing new work or managing their audience.
On geotag metadata. I mean, you can add geotag in the actual inscriptions. That'd be a cool feature or use case of it. I'm just going through all these.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that one.
Collectors can't update metadata. They can only add story inscriptions. Otherwise, it'd be a shit show. Although there are some versions of 7160 that were, we find it fascinating. Like, what if we could allow the creator to toggle on, like, collectors can add their own creations to the token. Now, of course, some people will use that maliciously and troll the collection, but that's why you give it in the hands of the creator to toggle on and off at a contract level. But currently, collectors can't manipulate metadata, but they can add inscriptions. Metadata is what the token is. Image, video, whatever. Title, description, attributes. Inscriptions are over here in a different slot of on-chain data that are appended to that token and kind of live with it on-chain. I know it's a lot of... It's hard to innovate without getting very technical. So we're trying our best to simplify it. Let's see. Yeah. What was the question for? Oh yeah, the geotag. Okay, and then PV for 71. Okay, you got him. Cool. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, so I think this is the last slide for story inscriptions before we jump into stacks and mint pages. So I just want to take a pause here and first off, see if anyone has any questions around story inscriptions. If you use story inscriptions and want to give us like a little 1 minute to talk about your experience with story inscriptions or how you're thinking about using them for a future collection, we welcome that on stage. So feel free to just ask a question or raise your hand before we move on to the next part of this presentation.
Do we want to let's just do like everyone on stage. Let's get through stacks. It should be pretty quick.
Okay. And then we have a...
then we can do like a open stage.
Cool. But in the meantime, if you have story inscription questions, feel free to just drop them in the chat. And then we'll also do at the end of this presentation, we'll go and have everyone who wants to come up on stage and we'll answer questions directly or chat. So we're also going to publish this PowerPoint. This presentation is recorded, 95% sure. So you can check your FAQs. We have support articles on adding images, writing story inscriptions, and then another like thread with more examples, some of which we talked about today. So now we're moving into stacks. So what is stacks? Stacks is essentially creator-owned mint pages that are, I call them semi-customizable. So with stacks, you can actually release editions or one of X collections or a 1 of 1 for a buy now price. At the moment, our mint pages do not support auctions, so it's purely for edition mints, whether that's on Ethereum, Base, or Arbitrum, or a 1 of X series, again, on those same chains. So there is no creator fee. Similar to other platforms in the space, we take a collector or a minting fee, a protocol fee, which, if it's a free mint, we'll actually do a 55%, 45% split to the creators. So the creators will take the majority of the protocol fee on free mints. We're still implementing that right now into stacks and the Launchpad. But there is no cost to creators, and we actually use lazy minting, which means the pieces are actually being minted by the collectors. So you as a creator actually also save lots in gas, since you don't have to mint the works yourselves before listing them. And so here's just a quick list of some of the features. So like for editions, we have the open edition functionality, timed editions, limited editions, and some really cool minting mechanics like velocity and marathon minting. And so velocity minting essentially removes time off the mint clock. So maybe, Ben, do you want to jump in to talk about velocity and marathon minting here?
Yeah, sure. They just kind of spice up the traditional editions minting. So velocity, let's say we have 24 hours. You as a creator can set the duration, but you can also set a deduction per mint. So let's say it's a minute. Every time a mint comes through, an additional minute gets removed off the clock. So the more people that are minting, the more accelerated the time or the clock becomes, approaches zero. So it says 24 hours, but if you have a rush of people come in and you're deducting 10 minutes off the clock per mint, that time can quickly approach zero. So it gives like a sense of urgency and excitement to drops. It's just like a fun, I don't know. It's like an attention economy thing. It keeps people locked in and less likely to be like, oh, I'll check back later and mint it. It's like, well, it might be drained later. You can't guarantee the clock's going to stay, in real time. And then marathon minting does the opposite. Every time a mint comes through, time gets added back onto the clock. So it basically stays open as long as there's a consistent flow of demand. And then if people naturally stop minting, the time will just run out. So it's new ways to kind of discover demand and set like soft limits, I guess we'll call them, on your supply that's completely dependent on current market demand and doing it in like an exciting way. Yeah, keep going. I'll answer this question sometime.
So then, I also mentioned 1 of X. So whether that's, 21 of ones, but stacks are actually randomized or they're minted in the order that you select them when creating your mint page. And so it's essentially like a collection of 1 of ones that you collectors would mint randomly. So there's a shuffle button and a preview, and we'll get into all of this and show some visual examples. So the collectors have a idea of what they could get, but it's randomized. So they may get a completely different piece that they haven't seen, for example. We also have allow listing functionality. So you can create pre-sales with different durations, or at least one pre-sale phase with a different duration from the public sale phase. You can also create max allowances for different wallet addresses. So let's say you want to give 20 mints to your number one collector, and then all your other collectors get 2 mints. You can do that with our allow list mechanism. And then it's automatic. So as soon as the allow list is over, or that duration is over, it immediately just moves into the public sale with a different price if you choose to do that, a different allowance, different duration, etc. And then, as I mentioned, currently the lab supports Space, Arbitrum, and Ethereum drops.
Cool.
So this is a structure of a Stacks mint page. It's kind of a choppy screenshot here. I don't know how good that looks, but essentially the image or artwork is at the top. And then if you scroll down, you'll get to see all of this. So the first thing that you have is your title. So in this scenario, it's Astro Olympics 2024 was the name of the collection. Then you have a description of the piece, whether it's an edition or the collection. We don't pull in the description of the piece that's being sold. So if you wanted to just put that description in, you would have to just copy and paste that into this field, essentially. Then we have something that we're super excited about called informational sections. So these, you can have as many informational sections as you'd like. In Dominic's case, he has 3. So one, which is like general information about the collection, another one, which is about the artist, so people can learn more about Dominic and who he is. And then another section to talk about the print that's actually included in the mint price. And so you can add more context, talk about yourselves, talk about your curation partner, whatever the case may be. Essentially, it allows you to add more context in an organized manner. And then in line with that, we also have customizable FAQs. So again, you can add as many as you'd like. He created a joke here, like how much coffee went into the creation process. He's a big coffee drinker. But you can talk about the price or the max wallet limit, like allowance, why is it 2, the allow us phase, just any questions. And what's really cool with the FAQs is as questions come in, even when the Stacks is published, you can add those frequently asked questions into the mint page as the sale is ongoing. So this stuff, like the informational sections and FAQs, can be modified after publishing your stack, while things like the price or the duration, that is set when you publish the stack. And so as you can see at the very bottom, we also have social links. So you can input your Twitter, your Forecaster, and then if you have a website or a catalog or wherever you want to link out to a different website, you can also incorporate that here. So that's the general structure of a mint page. Again, we'll do a demo and showcase some of these. Let me see.
I was just answering a question about the API to build custom front ends, where all this is on a Stacks contract, which you can find in docs.transientlabs.xyz. There's a 721 Stacks address that handles all 721s, and there's an 1155 Stacks contract address. And then from there, it's you could literally just write front ends that plug into any existing Stacks. This is what we do when we build custom mint pages. But that not a lot of people are gonna be able to do that. So we're gonna keep adding more like customizability features to Stacks pages, new layouts, ability to change color themes, fonts, border radius, backgrounds, like all that kind of stuff. We don't want to get too carried away because you don't want to become MySpace where it's just hard to look at and everything is so wildly different, but definitely some customizability features.
Yeah, so this is an example of a one of 20 collection. So it's 21 of ones in the Astro Olympics series. And so the first thing that you're taken to when you land on this like mint page is the artwork is front and center. The artwork is always front and center. Like that is something we prioritize heavily at Transient Labs. that's what we're about. We're about the artist and the artwork. So here you can see, you can actually like view it in full screen, or you can shuffle the preview. So as I mentioned, these are actually randomly minted. So just because I see the bicycle, if I click mint, I may not get the bicycle piece. I may just get a different one of one that's in this collection. And so, you know, like I said, there's the description, you'd have the timer here, the price, the allowance. It would say mint. We'll show you some live mints as well. And then FAQs and social links are down here. So it's the structure of the mint page. This is an example of an artist who just used stacks for one of one. So it's just a buy now one of one that a collector can come and scoop up. On your one of one collection contracts or 721s, you can only run one stacks mint at a time. So essentially this piece has to sell before Loyola can add another piece for sale from this collection, or like launch another mint page for a separate one of one on the same contract.
So this is just like a workaround. But this is why all transient contracts are indexable to Foundation and Super Rare and Maker's Place. So I would encourage most people, if you're going to do a one of one, I would deploy your transient contract, create your artwork, and then just index it to like one of your favorite marketplaces. Eventually, we're going to have auctions. Like they're already built. It's just a matter of integrating them into the lab studio. But we'll have auction pages and buy nows and reserves and ranked auctions and all that stuff.
And so this is an example from Tiffatron of Future Lullaby in a Red Room. It's an 1155 edition that actually used velocity minting. So here you can see this little icon that looks like a clock. It's essentially specifying that this is a velocity mint. And so with velocity mints, technically there's a supply cap. Usually that won't be met because for the supply cap to be met, someone has to come in and mint that supply cap as soon as the mint opens. Maybe I'm not explaining this correctly, Ben, but like if there's a 24-hour timer, like the duration of the drop is 24 hours. Each mint removes an extra hour from the clock. So that means the total supply possible for a velocity mint over 24 hours with a 1 hour increment is 24 editions. And for that to be hit, as soon as the mint is open, all 24 have to be minted, if that makes sense. So there is technically, you'll know your max supply when doing the calculations between the drop duration and your increment that you're removing time off the mint clock. And so like something that's really interesting is here, Tiffatron added, she knows maybe people aren't familiar with what a velocity mint is. So she added an explanation that specifies, with this velocity mint, the countdown timer decreases. In this case, the mint window is 24 hours and the timer decreased by 5 minutes with every mint. And so it ended with 32 mints with price. And that's just another example of a stacks page. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. My Wi-Fi is struggling today.
I was just explaining to is it Soju? So I don't want to pronounce it wrong. About the blind minting. Essentially, you as a creator determine the order in which they're going to mint, because everything's stored in a directory on like IPFS or Arweave before the mint goes live. And then as mints come through, they get minted, like lazy minted. But you set the order in which that happens. We've talked about like randomize my mint buttons for the creators to hit before they deploy the stack. The order still has to be set beforehand, but there's ways to like randomize it. Anyone who really wants to dig deep enough on chain though, can token peep or whatever they call snipe what the next token is going to look like. Unless you did like generative metadata on the fly, which we're actually have a custom project that we're building a stacks version that does just that. So definitely something that'll probably be included into the Creator Studio in the future. Are we doing a demo?
Yeah, should we just dive into like so that was the front end and what the collector sees and what you as a creator sees with the finished mint page. But we wanted to do a demo and walk you through the process of creating this mint page. So
Can you
what
see?
Yep, we see the lab in your contract dashboard right now.
All right. Yeah. So this is the lab. This is the dev environment. It works the exact same as product. So there's just a lot of stuff in here. This is where I test stuff on Sepolia. Yeah, this is my contract page, all my contracts. I'm just going to pick an 1155 contract so we can go through a stacks setup. So for an 1155, let's just take this. We'll just do create. So I'm going to hit create, and I want to create a new stack or a mint page. Explains down here what that is. So I'm going to click this. The first thing that it has you do is select a token. An eligible token. It has to be completed, not like an incomplete draft. So I'm going to select one of my favorite Pursuit of Code pieces. Hit next. And then you just name it here. Let's just call it test stack number 1. The slug automatically gets generated. You can edit this though and put whatever you want in here. Customize the actual slug on there. Payout address, of course, is just going to be whatever wallet you want to get paid out. You can also put a split address here. We're going to include like split UIs in the future, so you can just do that right here without having to leave. But currently, you can put a splitter address if you're splitting the funds with somebody. And then finally, you just select a start date here. We'll start it tomorrow at 12. We'll do 12. 12. I could just type this in, but I'm doing this annoyingly. There we go. And then next, so we set up the initialization. Now I get to choose like which stack mechanic I want. Limited supply, or do I want unlimited supply but timed, or do I want to do one of these two fun like velocity or marathon? I can just go through each quick. Limited supply, you put a supply limit, right? Pretty straightforward. Oops, I went too far back. My bad. Oh, actually, I know what I need to do. So I got exited out of there. If I go to my stacks, I can see my stack draft. So it gets saved if for some reason you get exited. So I can see my stacks, test stack number 1, and I'm just going to click on this, and everything's still here. I just didn't mean to go back that far. And so timed addition, you just enter a time, and we'll do a little velocity because it's just kind of fun. So here's where you'd pick, like, I want a 24 hours, but the decay rate, every time a mint comes through, I'm going to do subtracting 10 minutes off the clock. We're going to set a sales price. I mean, this is where you put in your price, and then you can put a maximum per wallet. So I'm going to let each wallet mint up to 10 at a time. And that's like the max. They can't, if they mint 10 over time, they run out of supply and you reach your allowance. And then from here, you get to the actual page that Daniel was showing where you can add descriptions. You can add, let's see here, description. I mean, it's very self-explanatory. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Informational sections. You can add as many sections as you want. Section 1, stuff here. And you can add another one about the artist. Stuff here too. And like I said, you can continue to do this, like the physical prints. Maybe there's physicals that come with this. Stuff here as well. And then I can add as many FAQs as I want to. So FAQ 1, what? And then
I love these.
Who or when moon. And so once you're done, you can add all your social links, Twitter, Farcaster, any websites you want to add, and then you can preview your stack. Oh, did I forget something? Let's see here. I did not forget it. So, okay, so it's going to pull up my image. Cool. This is my 1155 that we're minting. And then it kind of shows you. It's not configured, so this is not going to actually update. Once it does, it'll show you the actual price and everything. It's upcoming in 24 hours and 34 seconds. And here I can see my section 1, section 2, my description, my physical print section. Obviously, there'll be more text there, hopefully. And then you can see your FAQs that you added here. And then you'll have your social links. And when you approve of all that, you can launch your stack. And that takes you through the same, you sign a transaction, very cheap gas, and then it publishes your stack. And now your drop is live. So it's as easy as that. And you can do that for 7160s, 721, 1155. If you ever get stuck, down here, we're very responsive, by the way. We try to be, at least. There's search articles here, like I forgot how to do like an 1155 stack. We have video walkthroughs on everything. So if you click on this, yours truly here, just like, and Daniel too. I think it's just the two of us. We made a ton of videos for everything that's in the lab. So if you ever get stuck, just come down here, search the articles, or just send us a message and we'll get back to you pretty quickly.
Yeah,
that's stacks. And then when your stack is launched, you'll see it show up here. This is randomly selected. It picks like 5 to 10. And every 10 minutes, we randomly select a new 5 to 10 drops. So it will, at some point, show up in this stacks carousel feature where your mint will be right here. You can also you'll also have a link to your actual stacks page. It'll be transient.xyz/stacks/ whatever your slug is. And here you can just share your URL with anybody. We're going to have referral links coming pretty soon, so people can actually earn on sharing your drops. And yeah, that's mint pages in a nutshell. So, and these are, like I said, we're just scratching the surface here.
This is just the start.
You have to start somewhere. Building things is hard. And so we got so many ideas, new tech, ways for creators to get discovered, Tinder for art, referral links, new auction mechanics, auctions in general, new stacks, new minting mechanics, and then ever evolving like marketplace. So let's get some questions here as Daniel violently types away.
I don't know why it's so loud when I type. Like when I record those support article videos and I'm typing, you just hear like clacking in the background loudly.
So I don't know. KS is like, if I create a stack with 100 1-of-1, so it's a 1-of-1 of X, 100 supply. Once that's closed, you can definitely do another batch. Once that drop's done, you can do another batch of 100 on the same contract, one after another, after another, after another. So you can keep adding like chapters to your contract.
It wouldn't be on the same stacks page though. You need to launch a separate stacks page.
But it'd be on the same contract, and you could call it the exact same stacks page. You could just duplicate the other stacks page that finished, and just create another one. Call it chapter 2. But yeah, it can be all done on the same contract. Sweet. I think that's everything though. We can open up the stage unless you have more slides that you needed to share.
Oh, we're covered. I just want to say, thank you for all the time and attention that everyone here has given us.
Yeah, we're aware that there's a learning curve when we cater to like professional users and people creators who really want to take their career seriously into the next level. So we understand it's a learning curve to a lot of this, just like there is to Photoshop and Illustrator and Premiere and all that stuff. But we're doing our best to make it as simple as possible, but also push boundaries. It's a very challenging zone to live in. So yeah, I don't know how you invite people up, but can people just invite themselves up?
Raise your hand, or you just raise your hand, I think, and then we can. I think, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, does anyone want to try it?
Anyone have anything they want to say?
I don't know if any.
Or do
we have to invite? Do we have to invite to participate?
Invite to participate, maybe.
Yes, you can put a different wallet for primary sales than you do secondary sales. They can be the same, but they can also be different. You set the secondary payout when you deploy the contract. But and then you set the primary when you deploy the mint mechanic, the mint page. So yeah, they can be different. Is there anything else that kind of sparked my memory about something I wanted to say? Don't remember. I don't know if people can join.
I mean,
someone want to try, and then if you can't, say in the chat, because I see here that we have to invite people to participate. Yeah, PB, do you want to try to come up, or can I invite you? So no one sees a way to join. Can no one like?
Yeah, maybe we have to just invite to participate. But
All right,
yeah,
in the
overall,
chat. Yeah, in the chat, then just people raise your hand, or just pay-per-view is getting ready. Just say in the chat, be like, I want to come up. They do not make it easy, do they? To invite people. It's not like Twitter Spaces.
I mean, I just invited David and Paper, but I don't know if they got the invite.
Yeah, you guys should be. I see that it says, oh, there comes Paper.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We did it. You know, Daniel seems way overqualified as an intern. We should probably promote that guy.
I've been promoted, I think.
Yeah, he's not. He calls himself intern, but
it's a running joke.
Lead head of BD development, but yeah, he can move around if he wants.
Yeah. So I have a serious question because we all know Daniel hasn't been an intern for a while. Is there plans for, like, I've got a bunch of different transient contracts out there, right? I've done a thing for 24 Hours of Art. I've done a couple of different collections. Is there going to be a way for us to showcase all of those different collections?
In like one page, like a creator page?
Yeah, something like a creator profile page, maybe.
Yeah, there are creator profile pages that we released not too long ago.
Should we use Paper Buddha as a demo?
Yeah,
I'm in. Let's do it.
Let's see here. Let me just share this again. Maybe I can get faster at it. Yeah, so there's profiles here. I can just visit your profile. You can share this link too. I can see any stacks you have right up here. You've got a stack live. I can also see all the tokens you've ever minted, your stacks you've ever done, and all the collections you've ever deployed. And I can see recent activity of everything you've ever been doing chronologically.
Well, that's a cool feature I didn't know we had.
We try, man. Twitter's blocking, man. The algorithm sucks. We try to scream about this stuff, and then it reaches like 10% of our audience, if not less. So yeah, this is transient.xyz/your username. Or you can just search your username up here. Like if I just type in mine, I can see all the stuff that I've done here with Pursuit of Equilibrium and stuff. So yeah, it is there. And it's going to evolve too. Like it's not just this. We want to aggregate all your stuff. So it's like Manifold, Foundation, Super Rare. Add filterability so you can filter by all kinds of cool attributes and, you know, stuff that people kind of expect when they have a one-stop shop. But
yeah, that's the struggle for me right now in the back end. I'm doing all of that, cataloging all of my work into one place for my website and trying to make a searchable database. It would be so much easier to just have that as a creator tool.
Yep, that's in the roadmap. Like I said, there's a lot of things that we're excited to build. So it's just a matter of prioritizing. And it helps to prioritize when creators such as everyone here are loud about like what they want. Because that, like, we listen to that and we're like, we have a scoring system and that influences the score quite a bit. And we'll bump it up so that we work on them sooner. It's like a balance between like essential needs and like innovations that we want to release.
Yeah. Ryan, maybe I don't want to take up, we're already a little over time here. So Ryan, do you have any questions or comments here?
Yeah, sorry. Just a quick question. I don't know if you'd already covered the trace chips and where you are kind of with that rollout. I know that it seems to be just in its very early stages, but I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about how maybe that's scalable right now to anybody who's doing like fashion, collectibles, or anything else.
Yeah, so the shop, we have a shop open to all creators to order trace chips, is literally like less than a week away from going live. So up to date, have a lot of people doing trace, just like releasing trace chips. If I go to Transient Labs and I just look at the history of trace, like there's a lot of activity going on here. We're just having to ship them out to people. So they reach out, we get their address, and we ship them. I'm literally the warehouse. I have like thousands of trace chips sitting next to my desk right now. But yeah, the shop, the online shop, is going to go live very soon. And then from there, everything that you need to create a trace contract is in the lab. So you would go to new contract, my trace, whatever you want to call it, or my physicals, change this whatever you want. It's right here, and it runs on both Arbitrum or Base. Since it's way cheaper to do this on L2, we did it on L2. And then you can deploy the contract, and you can even create the draft tokens, even though this warning is here. You can still do all that, but then when you want to go to mint the token, you'll have to have your trace chip in hand, and you just scan it with your phone. But that, like I said, that distribution center is opening very soon.
And that linking of the chip with the token happens in your mint flow when you're actually minting your certificate.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like a separate thing. You're not linking out. It's very like easy to follow along, and you're just going through this one flow to set up trace. So it's coming sooner than you think, probably.
Yeah, it's like literally right around the corner. Less than a week, getting that shop live. I'm on the wrong link. I was going to show yeah, I don't want to.
Ryan, did that answer your question?
You can take more questions while I load this.
I just want to make sure, Ryan.
Here's the trace contract. So you can see I've already done a token here. We're doing a demo for a watch company. But I can actually go view this trace token. I deployed it. I had the scan this QR code with your phone, opens up a web page, and then the phone says, now tap your chip. And then automatically, your desktop page starts going through the deployment process and mints your COA to the trace chip. And then from there, you can add all these records.
Okay, that's really helpful, and I really appreciate it. So I'll keep my eye out. And then just a follow up to that is, with these, what you're currently building, is there an integration of commerce that allows for credit card purchases, or is it strictly all with crypto?
No, I'm glad you asked that. We're integrating Privy Wallet. So not only will it have all fiat payment support, but also do cross-chain payments and stuff. So you can buy on other chains using your preferred currency, whether that's USD or ETH. I want to buy a base piece with ETH or Solana. Like you can do all these cross-chain payments, but you can also use credit card. And Privy will also let people just sign up for the lab that don't even have a wallet. They can just use their email and a password to create a custodial wallet, self-custodial wallet, actually, using all those new standards. So that stuff is in the works. So yeah, there's a lot coming. It's gonna.
So the custodial wallet would be something that they can maintain, or is it hosted by you guys?
Oh, they maintain it. Yeah, just under the hood. Like Privy's handling all this with like the new standards, the new abstraction standards for smart wallets. So yeah, that's going to unlock a lot of easeability for new users who have never really fucked around in Web3. But then on top of all that, we'll have like fiat payments, so people can buy your mints and buy your artworks using fiat. Or if you do it on Base, they can use ETH mainnet to buy it, or vice versa. Like they can just do mixed cross-chain payments. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, Ryan. Mia had a question about Trace, and what if a physical art collector doesn't do things related to NFT or Trace? What you can do?
Yeah, they don't need anything. They don't need any wallets. Am I on camera? Yeah, I'm on camera. Hold on, let me
You're on
show you. Oh my god, I'm on camera. All right, let me how am I gonna do this on camera? Let me switch cameras to the lesser preferred camera. There we go. So I have my phone. Let's just pretend I've never used Web3 before. This is an already activated trace chip for a demo. It's gonna be hard to do this backwards. See if I can do it on here. So if I like hold this up to my phone, it opens up this link, and let's pretend this is on the artwork. I'm the collector. I'm scanning it, and I can actually pull up the COA, the trace COA, and I can read all the provenance records. And if there's more added here, like sales and everything, I can actually see that. I don't have to have a wallet. I don't have to even know what Web3 is, and I can still benefit and use trace to authenticate and see the provenance.
So to clarify, like trace is just a certificate of authenticity for a physical. It's not a digital twin. It can't be sold on like Foundation. It is purely the certificates.
It's meant to tether physicals to the blockchain so that they can be tracked on the blockchain. Here's another one. Here's the watch. This is a different trace chip that I had in my desk that I set up. And I can actually see all these records here where I've like added story creations. Here's the certificate of authenticity for this watch. Oh my God, this is hard to do backwards. Here's the sales receipt for this watch on chain. And this would come like in the box as like the COA. Same stuff happens for, let me switch back to this camera. Same thing for like this signed Taylor Swift album. Like I made a trace for it. So instead of having to go to my safe here to look at the JSA certificates, I can just scan the trace chip and I can see all that certification on chain. And I don't have to have a Web3 wallet to do all that. So yeah, we're working on like digital twin concepts and everything for trace. But
it's a bit loaded.
Let me just state this for everyone here. It is impossible to sell an NFT and in a trustless manner force the transfer from one hand to another. So I could have a digital that represents a physical, and I could sell that digital on Super Rare through some auction mechanic. But I cannot force that other collector to give up that physical. There's no trustless way to do that unless you have a third-party escrow or Web2 like legal contracts that are legally binding that person to transfer the physical. So that's a question we get a lot from creators. Is like, oh, does Trace let me auction an NFT that then represents the sale of the physical? It's like, yeah, if you trust that buyer to actually send you the physical, but there's no way you can actually enforce it unless it gets escrowed in like a physical warehouse. But so yeah, Trace right now is an on-chain COA that the artwork itself owns. Like that COA, which is a 721 by the way, and uses Story Inscriptions for records. That COA lives in this card. This is a ledger. This is no different than a ledger. There's a private key to this, but the difference between that is that I know the private key to this. No one in the world knows the private key to this. So if you send a COA to the chip, it's locked in this chip forever. And so when you attach that to the artwork, it is permanently bound to the physical. So that's kind of what sets Trace apart from IYK and a lot of the other NFC chip tech, is the fact that it's like literally a ledger that can sign transactions and own NFTs, and it's it's pretty cool.
So I think I just want to make sure we get to DeSalter over here as well on stage.
Go ahead. I'm just talking away.
That's good. It's helpful. How are you, DeSalter?
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hey, all right. Well, hey, appreciate y'all's time and going through all this stuff. Like what y'all do for support and documentation is pretty unparalleled. It's pretty great to have that line of communication. So props there. Question on Trace though. So as I understand it right now, everything is manual, right? As far as the physical, are there any plans to create tools around supporting fulfillment of physicals, like inventory or order management systems or integrations with third parties who do that?
For like a distribution of the actual trace chip, or for signing records and stuff like that?
More the fulfillment side. Like, I've created a painting, I've made a trace enabled NFT, it's minted, I've sold the NFT. Is it then up to me entirely to then orchestrate, getting that to the person if they want to claim it at that point?
Well, I think like what I was just explaining is like trace it's not meant to create an NFT that you sell that represents the sale of the physical. It's meant to like certify the physical's authenticity, but using the blockchain.
Yeah, so it's more centered around that side of it rather than the fulfillment of a.
We're working on distribution partners like Christie's and Sotheby's. So if a print goes through auction there, they can, if the trace chip's already on the print, which we have a lot of artists auction things at Sotheby's with trace chips, they can either add records, like sales records, to the trace chip, so you can actually see on chain that it was added by Sotheby's, that auction happened and concluded at this price. But we're also working on having them be distribution partners too. So if a painting goes through there that doesn't have a trace chip, that's something they could add and authenticate when it goes through their auction house. Not sure if I don't think that's what you were asking, but
no, I think in a way it is. I think you just have to be at that level, right, of being within the custody realm of a Sotheby's or whoever in that case. But I guess for me, I'm thinking if, I wanted to say set up a shop and have NFTs I'm selling with the physical, it kind of then becomes
I see what you mean.
Right? Yeah. Total ban of order management, inventory management, all that fulfillment tracking.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah, we're working with like print suppliers, but I know some people like to provide their own prints. But the ones that we can control, like our own print suppliers, partners, we've definitely been talking about having options where you could have like sell an NFT that comes with a print claim, and then that supplier also is a distributor of trace chips that can include those with the prints. But for right now, it's definitely like, I as an artist have these physicals, and so they're responsible for like getting the chips, deploying the COAs to all those chips, and then sending them to the collector that has the physical to attach themselves, or the creator themselves attaches it before they send the physical. So yeah, it's very much like artist driven right now. But yeah, very early. It's hardware products. It's kind of like a hardware plus software product. There's a lot of steps involved in getting it to a highly scalable, very low lift point for creators, but we're working on that, like enterprise level stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the approach you guys are taking with this kind of smaller pool to make it, more defined and work as good as it can first makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You excited for what's next?
Yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome. I think that's a great.
The store will be open soon, so that'll make it easier though for creators to just order them themselves.
Yeah, right. I guess real quick question there. So right now, there's no way to get additional trace chips. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, if you want them and you need them for an upcoming use case, we're happy to hook you up. But
okay.
Yeah, currently like I said, the store's so close, like less than 7 days out. So it's coming.
Perfect. All right. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. I think we'll definitely continue doing this at least once a month. So next month's seminar or webinar will be focused on Trace and ERC 7160 and how those can be used. We'll have the Trace store live. So like at the end of that webinar, you'll definitely be able to go and order yourself some Trace chips. But yeah, just really appreciate everyone here that's willing and wanting to learn and get to know Transient Labs a little more and all the features that we offer. So thank you.
Sweet. All right. Thanks, everybody.